Hi, do you have a huge room that you need to make look more designed or a small room that needs to function like it's three different rooms? Maybe you're super lucky you have a big room that needs to multifunction, but whatever it is, just keep listening to learn what zones are, how to create them to make your room work for you and look designed all day. And if you like it, share it. If you want more, subscribe and comment below with what you want to know. So in the previous video, I outlined where to start and the steps to take in designing a room. The first step was making zones. So I'm going to break it down because I promised that I'll make a video for each step. So I'm going to break it down and explain what zones are and how we can use them. So what's a zone? When designing a room, the first question we ask is what the room will be designed for. Once we have our list, so meaning it's going to be used for sleeping, for eating, for relaxing, for friends, for entertaining, we make sure it's a list because it's never going to be just one thing. And we go to the room, we figure out where each of these activities are going to take place. These different areas are called zones. So in a bedroom, we will have the sleeping zone, the reading zone, the dressing zone, etc. When deciding on zones, you have to keep in mind the different aspects of the room. For instance, you wouldn't want to put the dressing zone right by the window, or maybe put the relaxing zone there. Maybe if you have a fireplace, put the relaxing zone by a fireplace. You want to make sure to take in all the different architectural features so that your zones are using the space most effectively and they make sense. I want you to tell me if you have a feature in your space. I want you to comment below that you think can work to your advantage or that you're trying to figure out how to make it work. If you comment, I can help you out. So the second thing is you want to make sure not to overfill the space. If it's feeling cramped, maybe remove a zone, or even if it's feeling empty, maybe try to think of a zone that you can put in there, right? Some zones are optional, some zones aren't necessary, so play around with it a little bit. Once you have the different zones, you want to make sure to accentuate each zone. You want to make sure that each one is somewhat its own thing while working in the whole room. And it's all the same style, it's all the same color palette, but you want to set it apart. So, for example, you can use curtains, you can use an accent wall, you can use a rug, you can use a lighting fixture, something, a big huge painting, something that will make your room, the zone, look like its own little space inside the bigger aspect of the room. When thinking of zones, it's also important to think about the overall feel. So I mentioned this a minute ago, but I'm going to say it again. You want to make sure everything is in the same style and the same color palette. So if you're going for minimalistic, you want to make sure that you don't have too many zones. You want to make sure that each zone is kind of almost bare, but not bare. And if it's cozy, let's say, so then you can kind of have the zones run into each other because you want it to look a little bit more cozy. But even if you're doing minimalistic or cozy or whatever you're doing, you have to remember to do a focal point, to create a focal point so that when you come into the room, you know where to look. Otherwise, what happens is that we walk into the room and our eyes try to catch on to something. And if they don't have anything to catch on, it will give us an unsettling feeling and we won't feel like the room is designed. But if you have a focal point and something for your eye to catch on to, then that's makes the room feel well designed. So even though you have the different zones, you don't want somebody to walk in and think like, oh, compartments. You want people to walk in and think, oh, focal point. I'm going to look here. And then everything else just kind of like falls into it and works. The last tip I would say is when you're trying to make the zones, think of the path that somebody takes. So for example, we have a kitchen. And right next to the kitchen, we're going to have the eating area because that's what people usually do after they're in the kitchen. And then after the eating area, we're going to have the relaxing area because after people eat, they like to sit down and kind of digest their food. So just like we have that in the house, you try to make that in your room. Try to think of it like when somebody wakes up in the morning, they want to go to the bathroom and then they want to get dressed. And when they come home, they want to go to the reading area. So I want to put the reading area right next to the bed if it kind of makes sense. You have to try to figure out the daily path of a person so that you can make the zones make sense so that people aren't just like jumping around the room from corner to corner. So there you have it. Make sure you sketch down on a paper before you actually move all your furniture because that's going to get tiring and you're going to have a few different options. And make sure to subscribe, like, and share the video so that I can continue making more. See you next Monday on Design Your Dream.